I never imagined that Thomas's secrets would continue to reveal themselves after his death. During our 45 years of marriage, he had always been a man of few words, reserved but loving. However, there was one rule that was never broken: never go to the ranch, Eleanor. Promise me. It was the only request he made with unwavering severity throughout our decades together. My name is Eleanor Warren. I'm 62 years old, a grandmother to three beautiful grandchildren, and a widow for just 3 weeks now. Thomas's death came like a thief in the night, silent and unexpected. A massive heart attack while he slept took away the man who had been the center of my universe for most of my adult life. The day I visited Thomas's attorney, Mr. Caldwell, for the reading of the will, I never imagined my life would take such a dramatic turn. Mrs. Warren, there's one more matter, said Caldwell after reviewing the standard provisions. His office smelled of old books and freshly brewed coffee. Your husband left very specific instructions regarding a certain property. I frowned, confused. Besides our modest home in Vermont, we didn't own any other properties. Property? There must be some mistake. Caldwell extracted a small wooden box from his desk drawer and slid it toward me. This will explain everything. Inside the box, I found an antique key attached to a keychain shaped like a paintbrush, and a sealed envelope with my name written in Thomas's unmistakable handwriting. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. My dearest Eleanor, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer by your side. I'm so sorry, my love. There are so many things I should have told you in life, but I couldn't bring myself to face the ghosts of my past. The ranch I forbade you from visiting really exists. It's located in Montana, in the mountains you always admired when we were young. I purchased it 3 years ago, after receiving a certain medical diagnosis that I chose to hide from you to spare you worry. I know I always promised that someday we would return to those mountains where you painted your first landscape. This is my way of keeping that promise, though it's too late for us to enjoy it together. The ranch is completely yours now. I ask that you visit it at least once before deciding what to do with it. In the main house's study, you'll find a laptop. The password is the date we met, followed by your maiden name. I have loved you every day of our life together, and that love will endure beyond my death, Thomas. Tears blurred my vision as I reread his words. A medical diagnosis? Thomas had been ill and concealed it from me? And this mysterious ranch? What did it all mean? Mr. Caldwell, I said, wiping away my tears. Did you know about this illness? The attorney nodded solemnly. Your husband was diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy 3 years ago. The doctors gave him a prognosis of 2 to 5 years. He wanted to protect you from that suffering. My heart contracted with a mixture of pain and indignation. 3 years. Thomas had carried that burden alone for 3 years, depriving me of the chance to be prepared, to consciously cherish each moment. And this ranch? I asked, holding the key as if it were a strange object. He purchased it shortly after his diagnosis. From what I understand, it was his personal project. Caldwell extracted a folder from his filing cabinet. All the documents are in order. The property has been fully transferred to your name, and the taxes are paid for the next 5 years. I left the attorney's office with my head spinning and my heart divided between the pain of Thomas's secrets and the intrigue of this mysterious property. That night, as I stared at the key on my kitchen table, I made a decision. I would go to Montana. I would see this forbidden ranch with my own eyes, and then, probably, sell it. I didn't need more memories or mysteries. I needed to close chapters to move forward with my life. The journey from Vermont to Montana was like traveling back in time. It had been almost 35 years since Thomas and I had last visited this region together. In those days, I was a young artist with dreams of exhibiting in major galleries. Thomas was finishing his engineering degree. We fell in love amid the majesty of the Montana mountains, under the spell of endless skies and dramatic landscapes. I followed the GPS directions along increasingly narrow and winding roads. When the device announced, "You have reached your destination," I found myself before an impressive wrought iron gate with a sign that read, Aspen Ridge Ranch. in elegant metal lettering. The key fit perfectly in the padlock. As I pushed open the heavy gate, a gravel road stretched before me, bordered by ancient pine trees. I drove slowly, feeling as though I was entering an alien world, one that Thomas had created without me. Rounding a bend, the house appeared suddenly, and my breath caught. It wasn't the humble ranch I had imagined, but a beautiful mountain lodge restored with exquisite taste. Warm cedar siding, a river rock foundation, large windows, and a welcoming wraparound porch. I parked in front of the house, aware of the silence broken only by the rustling of aspen leaves and the occasional call of a bird. Why had Thomas kept this paradise a secret? Why had he forbidden me from coming here? With my heart racing, I inserted the key into the front door lock. The mechanism's click resonated like an omen. I pushed the door open and stepped inside, not knowing what to expect. What I saw brought me to my knees. The spacious living room that opened before me wasn't a conventional seating area. It was a perfect artist's studio, polished hardwood floors, walls with strategically placed mirrors to maximize natural light, easels, and in one corner, a collection of Montana landscape photographs beside a small sitting area. But what truly took my breath away were the walls. They were covered with my paintings. Me, painting at different stages of my youth. Me, at the only professional exhibition I gave before abandoning art to start a family. Me, teaching our daughter Melissa her first brushstrokes in the living room of our small apartment. And at the center of it all, on an easel, an unfinished landscape that I recognized instantly. It was a piece I had started the summer before we were married, depicting the very mountains visible through the windows of this house. I had set it aside when we returned east, intending to finish it someday. On a desk by the window overlooking the mountains sat a silver laptop just as mentioned in his letter. With trembling fingers, I turned it on and entered the password 061219777, Nelson, the date of our first meeting, and my maiden name. The screen came to life immediately, showing a folder labeled for Eleanor. Inside were hundreds of video files, each labeled with a date, starting from the day after his funeral and extending for an entire year into the future. I clicked on the first one, and Thomas's face filled the screen. Not the Thomas from his final days, but my Thomas, vibrant and smiling, clearly recorded months earlier. "Hello, my Ellie," he began, with that crooked smile that always made my heart skip. "If you're watching this, it means I'm gone, and you've come to the ranch despite my years of making you promise not to." He chuckled softly. "I should have known you wouldn't be able to resist curiosity, especially after Caldwell told you about this place." A lump formed in my throat. Even now, he knew me so well. "I've recorded a video for every day of your first year without me. A year in which I'll keep you company as you grieve. A year to explain everything I should have told you while I was alive." He looked down briefly, then back at the camera with determination. "Starting with why I bought back the ranch, I swore I'd never set foot on again." The sound of a vehicle approaching on the gravel driveway interrupted my absorbed attention. Through the window, I saw a sleek black SUV stopping next to my modest rental car. Two men descended, both with the unmistakable air of authority that comes with money and power. The taller of them, with silver hair and an impeccable suit, seemed vaguely familiar. I paused the video reluctantly and wiped away tears I hadn't noticed were running down my cheeks. The men were heading to the door with determined steps, as if they knew the place perfectly, as if it belonged to them. The doorbell chimed a melody that seemed out of place amid the emotional turmoil I was experiencing. I took a moment to compose myself before opening the door. "Yes?" I asked, trying to make my voice sound firm. "Mrs. Eleanor Warren?" inquired the silver-haired man. His accent was clearly northeastern, but refined. "That's me. Gregory Warren?" He introduced himself, extending a hand I didn't take. "Thomas's brother. This is my younger brother, Richard." The second man, shorter with a calculating air, nodded slightly in acknowledgement. My mind raced. In 45 years, Thomas had barely mentioned his brothers. I knew they existed, but according to him, they had severed ties long before we met. We never met at the funeral, I commented, not moving from the doorway. Urgent business prevented us from attending, Gregory replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. An unfortunate coincidence. Thomas would have understood. Something in his tone immediately put me on guard. What can I do for you, gentlemen? We should talk inside, suggested Richard, trying to look over my shoulder into the house's interior. It's a family matter. I'm in the middle of something important, I replied, blocking his view. If you have any business to discuss, we can do it another day, with prior appointment. The brothers exchanged a glance I couldn't interpret. Mrs. Warren, said Gregory, his voice now harsher. There seems to have been some misunderstanding regarding this property. This ranch has belonged to the Warren family for generations. Thomas's recent purchase was always with the understanding that it would return to the family heritage after his passing. I felt as if I'd been doused with cold water. All the legal documents indicate this property is now mine. If you'll excuse me, I have matters to attend to. I began to close the door, but Richard's hand stopped it with surprising strength. I suggest you reconsider your position, ma'am, he said in a low but threatening voice. There are aspects of Thomas's life you know nothing about, aspects that could prove disturbing if they came to light. Before I could respond, a masculine voice resonated from the driveway. Any problem, ma'am? An older man, in his late 60s, approached with a determined step. He wore work clothes and a wide-brimmed hat that protected his sun-weathered face. At his waist, a bunch of keys jingled with each step. James Harding, he introduced himself, positioning himself naturally at my side. Ranch foreman. Mr. Thomas hired me personally to look after the property and Mrs. Warren. The Warren brothers stepped back imperceptibly. We were just introducing ourselves to our sister-in-law, said Gregory, his tone now more cautious, since we'd never had the pleasure. Of course, nodded James, not moving from his protective position. But the lady has just arrived after a long journey. I'm sure you understand that she needs to rest. After a tense silence, Gregory smiled coldly. Of course, we'll take our leave, but we'll speak again, Mrs. Warren. This matter is far from resolved. I watched them retreat to their vehicle, aware that the peace I had momentarily felt upon discovering the art studio had evaporated. Thank you, I said to James when the SUV disappeared down the road. No need to thank me, ma'am. Just doing my job. His face softened. Mr. Thomas warned me they might appear. Said I should be alert when you arrived. Did you know my husband well? James nodded slowly. Worked for him these past 3 years. He came every month. Personally oversaw the renovations. Never delegated a decision if he could make it himself. He paused. He was a good man. Talked about you constantly. I felt a pang of pain mixed with gratitude. May I offer you coffee, Mr. Harding? I think we have a lot to discuss. James accepted with a nod, and as we headed into the house, I knew the Warren brothers would return. This was just the beginning of a battle that Thomas had somehow foreseen. What I didn't know was that, the next day, the situation would become much more complicated with the arrival of a visitor I never expected to find in that remote place. I spent the rest of the afternoon with James, who proudly showed me the property. The ranch was much larger than I had imagined. Besides the main house, it had stables where 6 beautiful quarter horses nickered at my arrival, an old barn converted into a workshop, and extensive acres of pine and aspen that stretched into the mountains. Your husband renovated everything personally, James explained as we walked among the trees. When he bought the property, it was nearly in ruins. He worked tirelessly to transform it. Why so much effort for a place he forbade me to visit? I asked, more to myself than to him. James stopped and looked at me intently. Mr. Thomas had his reasons. It's not my place to reveal them, but I believe the videos he left will answer all your questions. It was dusk when we returned to the house. James bid me good night, telling me he lived in a small cabin near the stables and would be available if I needed anything. Be careful, Mrs. Warren, he added before leaving. The Warren brothers are not men who easily take no for an answer. Alone in that strange but oddly welcoming house, I returned to the studio. The computer was still there, with the video paused on Thomas's face. I sat down, took a deep breath, and resumed playback. 3 years ago, Thomas continued as if our conversation had never been interrupted. I was diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, an inherited heart condition. The doctors gave me 2 to 5 years. His image smiled sadly. I decided not to tell you or Melissa. I didn't want to be an object of pity, and I didn't want our last years together to be overshadowed by death. I felt a wave of contradictory emotions: pain for his solitary suffering, anger that he hadn't allowed me to prepare, understanding of his desire to protect us. When I received the diagnosis, I decided to use whatever time I had left to create something meaningful for you. You always loved painting, always talked about having your own space someday where you could teach art. So I found the last place anyone would expect me to go: the family ranch I'd fled at 18, vowing never to return. He leaned closer to the camera. What my brothers don't know is that I legally bought the ranch from our father before he died. The old man was broke after years of failed schemes, drinking away the family money. He sold it to me for a fraction of its worth, desperate for cash, swearing me to secrecy from my brothers, who still thought they would inherit it someday. This explained the brothers' visit and their claims about the property. The ranch was in ruins when I bought it, Ellie, just like when I was a kid. But this time, I had the resources to transform it. Every business trip these last 3 years was actually to come here, overseeing renovations, building something for you. His expression hardened. My brothers will come for it, he continued, as if he could see my current situation. They never wanted the ranch until last year when rare minerals were discovered in the region. Suddenly, the worthless property they had mocked me for buying became valuable. They'll try everything to take it from you. Thomas explained that in the bottom drawer of the desk I would find a blue folder with all the necessary legal documents. The ranch is unquestionably yours. I made sure of it. His face softened again. But Ellie, whether you keep it or sell it is entirely your choice. I built this place for you, filled it with beauty for you, but I don't want it to become a burden. The video ended with a promise. Until tomorrow, my love, there's much more you need to know. I sat staring at the black screen, processing everything I had learned. Thomas had created this sanctuary for me, knowing he wouldn't live to enjoy it with me. He had anticipated his brother's greed and prepared to protect me, even after his death. I found the blue folder exactly where he said it would be, filled with deeds, bank transfers, notary certifications, and legal documents that proved without a doubt that the property was legitimately mine. That night I barely slept, my mind a whirlwind of emotions and questions. At dawn I rose and almost by instinct, headed to the art studio. I stood before the mirrors, contemplating my reflection. At 62, I was still the same woman who had abandoned her passion for art to devote herself to her family. The lines around my eyes and the silver in my hair told the story of a life lived with love, but also with sacrifices. Without thinking, I picked up a brush and approached the unfinished landscape on the easel. My muscles remembered, even if they were stiffer. It began as a simple touch-up, but soon I found myself fully engaged, letting my body recall what my mind had tried to forget. I don't know how long I was like this, painting with increasing fluidity, rediscovering a part of myself that had been dormant for decades. The sound of a car approaching brought me back to reality. Through the window, I saw a small blue sedan stop next to mine. To my surprise, my daughter Melissa emerged from it, looking at the house with evident amazement. I ran to the front door and opened it just as she approached. "Mom," she exclaimed, embracing me. "Why didn't you tell me anything about this place? It's breathtaking." "Melissa, how did you know where I was?" I asked, confused but happy to see her. Her expression changed, becoming slightly embarrassed. "I got a call yesterday, a man who said he was Uncle Gregory. He said you needed help understanding certain complicated family matters." My heart sank. The Warren brothers were already implementing their strategy, trying to use my daughter as a point of entry. Come in, I said, taking her arm. There's a lot you need to know, and it's not what your supposed uncle has told you. As we walked toward the interior of the house, I noticed something on the driveway, a white envelope placed under a stone next to the porch steps. I picked it up, cautiously, opening the door to a new complication in this already complex situation. Upon re-entering the house, I realized that the battle for Aspen Ridge Ranch was just beginning. The Warren brothers had shown their first cards, but I had the ace that Thomas had left me. The truth documented in videos and legal papers. However, now that they had involved my daughter, the stakes were much higher. Melissa stared open-mouthed at the art studio that dominated the main room. Her eyes scanned the photographs on the walls, stopping especially on those where she herself appeared as a child, learning her first brushstrokes. "This is incredible," she murmured. "Dad did all this?" I nodded, still holding the unopened envelope I'd found at the entrance. Over the last 3 years, all in secret. I told her about Thomas's hidden illness, about his purchase of the family ranch, about the brothers who now claimed it, and about the videos he had left. Melissa's expression changed from amazement to indignation, and then to deep sadness. "Why didn't he tell us he was sick?" Her voice broke. "We should have been there for him, Mom. We should have known." "Your father wanted to protect us from pain," I replied, although part of me still resented that unilateral decision. He wanted our last years together to be normal, not defined by his illness. Melissa approached the easel where I had been working. "I remember this painting from old photos. You always said it was your someday project." "I started it the summer before your father and I were married," I smiled at the memory. "I never knew he had saved it all these years." We sat at the desk, and I finally opened the envelope I'd found. Inside was a handwritten note and what appeared to be a newspaper clipping. "Mrs. Warren, Gregory and Richard have set in motion their legal strategy to dispute your property. Attached is an article from the local newspaper about the discovery of rare minerals in this region. The value of your land is much greater than even your husband imagined. Be careful. A friend." The clipping confirmed what Thomas had mentioned in his video. Significant deposits of rare minerals, essential for modern technology, had been discovered in the hills of this area. Properties with these resources were now worth a fortune. "This explains your uncle's sudden concern for family welfare," I commented, passing the clipping to Melissa. "It's not about us, but about the value of this land." Melissa read quickly, her eyes widening. "Mom, we're talking millions of dollars potentially." "I know, and your uncles know it too. What are we going to do?" "First, watch today's video," I decided, opening the laptop. "Your father seems to have anticipated every step of this situation." Thomas's face appeared on the screen, so alive and present that it hurt to look at him. The recording was dated for today, as if he had known exactly when we would arrive at the ranch. "Good morning, my love," he began, his smile lighting up his face. "I hope you slept well in our new home. Today I want to show you something special." The camera moved as he carried it through the house, stopping at a locked door we hadn't noticed the day before. "This room is just for you. The key is in the top drawer of the nightstand, the silver antique one with the horse engraving." I paused the video and Melissa and I looked at each other. "Let's find it," she said, jumping up. We found the key, exactly where Thomas had indicated. Following the path he had shown in the video, we located the door, unassuming, situated at the end of the east wing of the house. The key turned smoothly in the lock. I pushed the door open and gasped. A fully equipped art studio filled the large corner room, bathed in perfect northern light from floor-to-ceiling windows. Easels, canvases, paints, brushes, everything an artist could desire, arranged with loving precision. "I didn't know you were this serious about painting," said Melissa, surprised. I responded quietly, "before I met your father. In college, I studied fine arts, but I gave it up to raise you," and my voice trailed off. I didn't need to finish the sentence. Then came marriage, motherhood, life. We resumed the video, and Thomas's voice guided us again. "You gave up so much for us, Ellie. Your painting was the first sacrifice. Though you never complained, I always promised myself I'd give it back to you someday. Tears blurred my vision as I surveyed the studio. The professional grade supplies, the inspiration books neatly stacked on shelves, the north-facing windows that would provide perfect, consistent light. There's one more thing, Thomas continued. Check the cabinet below the window seat. I approached the cushioned window seat that overlooked the eastern pasture, now golden in the morning light. Below it, built into the wall, was a cabinet that might have been missed if not specifically pointed out. Inside lay a flat archival box. With trembling hands, I lifted the lid and fell to my knees, shocked. My paintings, dozens of them, all the work I had created in college, pieces I thought had been lost in our moves over the years. Thomas had preserved them, protected them, kept them safe for 2 decades, until he could return them to me in this perfect space. On top lay a small canvas. I recognized immediately. My final project before graduation, a self-portrait of a young woman looking forward, eyes alight with possibilities. Thomas had asked to keep it the day I completed it. Tucked beside it was a handwritten note in his precise script. She's still in there, Ellie. The woman who painted with such passion and vision. I've given you the space. The rest is up to you. I clutched the note to my chest, overwhelmed by love and loss in equal measure. Thomas had seen me, truly seen me, in ways I hadn't allowed myself to be seen in years. Mom, whispered Melissa, kneeling beside me, her eyes bright with tears. This is amazing. I never knew you were an artist. It was a long time ago, I replied, running my fingers over the textures of my old works. Before you were born. Before life became so busy. The sound of vehicles on the gravel driveway interrupted our emotional moment. Moving to the studio window, I watched as 2 cars approached, the now familiar black SUV of the Warren brothers, and behind it, an elegant silver Mercedes I didn't recognize. They're back, I said, feeling a sudden chill. And it looks like they've brought reinforcements. I watched as Gregory and Richard emerged from the first vehicle. From the Mercedes stepped a middle-aged man with a briefcase that screamed lawyer from miles away. Mom, Melissa joined me at the window, her expression changing from emotion to determination. Don't let them intimidate you. This property is yours. Dad made sure of it. I know, I replied, surprised by the firmness in my own voice. For 45 years I had been Thomas's wife, Melissa's mother, the high school art teacher. I had let my identity be defined by my relationships with others. But here, surrounded by the memories of the woman I once was and could be again, I felt something awakening in me. Let's face them, I decided. Together. Reaching the front door, I saw James already standing on the porch, his posture firm and protective. The visitors were approaching up the path, their expressions a mixture of determination and arrogance. Good morning, Mrs. Warren, Gregory greeted with false cordiality. I see your daughter has arrived. Excellent. This concerns the whole family. My daughter is here to support me, I replied, maintaining my position at the entrance. Not to negotiate the property that legitimately belongs to me. Gregory gestured toward the man with the briefcase. This is Mr. Donovan, our attorney. He has prepared a proposal that I believe you'll find more than generous. I'm not interested in any proposal, I stated. This property is not for sale, especially not to you. Richard stepped forward, his tone condescending. Mrs. Warren, we understand you're emotionally attached to this place due to the circumstances, but you must consider the practical realities. This property requires constant maintenance and specialized knowledge. It's not suitable for a city widow with no experience in ranch management. I felt anger bubbling inside me. Mr. Warren, I've been here less than 48 hours, and I've already learned enough to know that this city widow can perfectly handle this property, especially with the help of the competent team my husband selected. The lawyer cleared his throat, stepping forward with his briefcase. If we could discuss this in a more comfortable environment, I have documents that demonstrate the Warren family's historical claim to this property. And I have documents that prove my husband legally purchased it. I countered. Documents that have been verified by my own attorney. The brothers exchanged glances. Clearly, they hadn't anticipated so much resistance. There's something else you should know, Melissa intervened, stepping forward. Her voice was firm, similar to the one she used in the boardrooms of the marketing agency where she worked. Dad left videos, many videos. Videos that detail exactly why he bought this property and the measures he took to legally secure it. Videos that specifically mention your anticipated attempts to claim it. I saw Gregory's composure waver slightly. Videos? Thomas was always given to melodrama. Anything he said about us should be taken with skepticism. Our relationship was complicated. That's undoubtedly true, I replied. So complicated that he barely mentioned you in 45 years of marriage. Attorney Donovan, sensing the growing tension, tried to redirect the conversation. Regardless of family dynamics, there are legal aspects to consider. The recent mineral valuation of this region has created exceptional circumstances that have awakened your sudden interest in a property that, according to Thomas, you considered worthless for decades. I interrupted. How convenient. Richard dropped the pretense of courtesy. Listen, lady, you can do this the easy way, or we can make your life considerably more difficult. We have resources, connections, and local influence you can't imagine. Is that a threat? Asked James, stepping forward. A reality, replied Richard. This property is worth tens of millions with the mineral rights. You're facing a legal battle against opponents with significantly greater resources. I thought of the blue folder with its meticulous documentation, the videos showing Thomas's clear planning, the transformed property that represented his last act of love. I believe my husband knew exactly what he was doing. I said quietly, now, please leave. My daughter and I have much to process. This isn't over, warned Gregory as they retreated. In fact, it's just beginning. We watched them leave, the silence broken only by the crunch of gravel under their shoes and the subsequent start of engines. They'll be back, commented James when the cars disappeared down the road. And with more aggressive strategies. I know, I replied, feeling a determination I hadn't experienced in years. But we'll be prepared. I spent the rest of the day showing Melissa the property, sharing what I had learned from James, and watching more of Thomas's videos together. With each recording, each corner of the ranch we discovered, the puzzle of Thomas's final years completed itself a little more. That night, as we dined on the terrace under a starry sky, Melissa looked at me thoughtfully. You know what's saddest about all this? She said. Dad created this paradise for you, but he never got to enjoy it with you. I felt tears threatening to spill again. I know. It's like he left me half of a dream. Then complete it, Melissa responded firmly. Make this place what he imagined. Not just a memory, but something alive and growing. Her words resonated with me, awakening possibilities I hadn't allowed myself to consider. What if, instead of seeing Aspen Ridge Ranch as my late husband's final gift, I saw it as the first chapter of a new life? I couldn't imagine how soon that resolution would be tested, nor the unexpected allies we would find in our fight against the Warren brothers. The battle for the ranch was just beginning, but for the first time since Thomas's death, I felt I had a purpose, a clear direction. As I watched my daughter under the starlight, I knew I wasn't alone in this fight. I had Melissa. I had James. And somehow, mysteriously and comfortingly, I still had Thomas, guiding me through his videos and the legacy he had created with so much love and foresight. What I didn't know was that the next morning, when I checked the mail that James had collected from the mailbox on the main road, I would find a letter that would completely change the course of our battle. The envelope arrived without a return address, only my name handwritten on the front. James had left it on the breakfast table along with some bills and a local newspaper. I barely paid attention to it while preparing coffee, but when I finally sat down and opened it, its contents left me breathless. Inside was a single sheet of paper with what appeared to be a birth certificate. At first I didn't understand its relevance until I read the names. Father, William Warren, Thomas's father. Mother, not the one I knew as Thomas's deceased mother, but a woman named Sarah Blackwood, and the child Samuel Blackwood, born exactly 7 months after Thomas. Attached was a handwritten note. Mrs. Warren, this information might be useful in your current situation. Mr. William Warren maintained a parallel relationship for decades. He had 2 children outside his marriage, Samuel and Hannah Blackwood, now residing in Colorado. Most interestingly, both are completely unaware of their connection to the Warren family. Your late husband discovered this information, but never used it. A friend who wants justice. Melissa entered the kitchen while I was still staring at the documents. What's that, Mom? You look like you've seen a ghost? I passed her the papers without a word. As she examined them, I saw her eyes widen with understanding. Secret uncles and aunts? She said finally. Do you think it's authentic? It fits with something Thomas mentioned in one of his videos, I replied. He said he had discovered family secrets during his research on the property, but didn't give specific details. He said he would only reveal them if absolutely necessary. And who could have sent this? James? I shook my head. I don't think so. They seem to have access to very private family information. Well, Melissa smiled slowly. It looks like we have an unexpected card in our hand. If Gregory and Richard are so obsessed with keeping the property in the family, maybe they should meet the rest of their family. We spent the morning researching the Blackwood siblings. In the age of social media, it wasn't difficult. Samuel was a doctor in Denver, specializing in cardiology. Irony of ironies. Hannah was a university geology professor, both successful, respected, with no apparent knowledge of their connection to the wealthy Warren family. It's almost as if Dad planned this, commented Melissa, as we reviewed the professional profiles of our newly discovered in-laws. Even after his death, he's still protecting us. Your father always thought several steps ahead, I replied, feeling a wave of gratitude toward the man who had been the pillar of my life for so long. The doorbell interrupted our investigations. This time, it wasn't the brothers' SUV, but a modest official car with the county sheriff's logo. James was already on the porch when we came out, speaking with a uniformed officer. His face showed concern. Mrs. Warren, the sheriff greeted with formal courtesy. I'm Sheriff Martinez. I'm sorry to bother you, but we've received a complaint about possible illegal occupation of this property. Illegal occupation, I repeated, incredulous. I have all the documents proving my legitimate ownership. Of course, nodded the officer. We're simply obligated to investigate when we receive such complaints. If you could show me the relevant documentation. Melissa had already gone to fetch the blue folder, while Sheriff Martinez meticulously reviewed each document. I couldn't help wondering who had filed the complaint, though the answer was obvious. Everything seems to be in order, the sheriff finally concluded, returning the folder to me. The documents are clear and legitimate. I apologize for the inconvenience, Mrs. Warren. May I ask who filed the complaint? I inquired. The sheriff hesitated. I can't reveal that officially, but... He lowered his voice. I'd suggest being careful with certain people claiming to be relatives. This area has seen similar disputes since the mineral discovery was announced. As the officer departed, James approached with a grim expression. This is just the beginning, he warned. The Warren brothers have local influence. They'll try to pressure you from every possible angle. They already are, I confirmed, showing him the documents about the Blackwood siblings. But it seems we have our own resources. James examined the papers, nodding slowly. Mr. Thomas mentioned once that he'd discovered family secrets he kept as a last resort. He never gave details. Do you think we should contact them? Asked Melissa. Samuel and Hannah. James seemed to consider the idea carefully. It's a double-edged sword. They might side with us or might join the claim once they learn of their potential inheritance. There's something else, I added, remembering another crucial detail. Thomas's second video mentioned a place we haven't explored yet. He said he built a bunker under the old barn, a place where he kept all the evidence against his brothers. James's eyes lit up with recognition. The barn on the western section, the only building he didn't completely renovate, always seemed strange to me. We decided to investigate immediately. The barn in question was situated on the western boundary of the property, away from the elegant stables and other renovated structures. Unlike the rest of the ranch, it maintained its rustic and somewhat deteriorated appearance, seemingly unimportant. "Your husband was a careful man," commented James, producing an old iron key. After his brother's first visit last year, he became even more cautious. "They visited before?" Thomas had never mentioned that. James nodded grimly. "They showed up unannounced once they caught wind of the mineral discovery on neighboring properties. Your husband was here supervising construction of the art studio. They didn't recognize him at first. He'd grown a beard during his treatment." The casual mention of Thomas's treatment sent a fresh wave of pain through me. While I was obliviously teaching art in Vermont, my husband had been here, sick, creating this sanctuary while fending off his predatory brothers. "What happened?" "He observed them from a distance, then left without revealing himself. That night, he made changes to the property plans." James unlocked the barn door. Starting with this, the door swung open to reveal an ordinary barn interior. Hay bales, old farm equipment, dust motes dancing in beams of sunlight, filtering through cracks in the walls. James moved confidently to the back corner, shifting several bales to expose a trapdoor set into the dirt floor. "Your husband installed this entrance last winter." The workers thought they were building a root cellar. He pulled the heavy door upward, revealing a sturdy wooden staircase descending into darkness. "After you, Mrs. Warren." With curiosity overcoming apprehension, I followed James down the stairs. At the bottom, he flipped a switch, and lights flickered on, revealing a concrete tunnel stretching forward into the earth. "What is this place?" I asked, amazed. "Your husband called it insurance. I call it genius." James gestured for me to follow as he walked the tunnel. "The Warren brothers think they know the full extent of the property and its value. They don't." The tunnel extended perhaps 50 yards before opening into a large concrete room filled with filing cabinets, a desk with computer equipment, and walls covered with maps and documents. "Welcome to Thomas's war room," said James, with a hint of pride in his voice. Everything he collected about his brothers, their business dealings, and the true value of Aspen Ridge Ranch. I moved to the nearest wall where a detailed survey map was pinned, showing not just the ranch but surrounding properties for miles. Red markings indicated mineral deposit locations with handwritten notes about depth, quality, and extraction challenges. "I don't understand," I said, turning to James. "Thomas knew about the minerals." "Not at first. He bought this place to renovate for you. Pure and simple. But about 18 months ago, when Peterson's land showed minerals, he hired geologists to survey Aspen Ridge secretly." James pointed to the map. "They found something unexpected." I studied the map more carefully, noting the concentration of red markings on the rugged western section of the property that stretched into the foothills. Land Gregory hadn't even mentioned in his proposed division. "The company's surveys missed it because the formation is unusual, deeper and shaped differently than expected," continued James. "Your husband verified it with 3 independent experts, swearing them to secrecy. So the property is even more valuable than his brothers realize. Exponentially. But that's not all." James moved to a filing cabinet, withdrawing a thick folder. "Thomas documented decades of questionable business practices by both brothers. Tax evasion, insider trading, misappropriation of client funds, enough evidence to ruin them professionally, if it ever came to light." I leafed through the meticulous documentation, recognizing Thomas's thorough approach to problem solving: email printouts, financial records, sworn statements from former employees. He had built an airtight case against his brothers. Why would he collect all this protection? James sat at the desk, gesturing for me to take the other chair. "He knew they'd come after the ranch once he was gone. He wanted you to have leverage." I thought of Gregory's smug confidence, Richard's legal maneuvering, their quick work turning Melissa against me. He anticipated everything. "Not everything," said James quietly. "He didn't expect them to get to your daughter so quickly." The reminder of the attempts to manipulate Melissa stung. They're manipulating her with half-truths and promises of wealth, playing on her grief. She lost her father, added James. Suddenly, they're offering a connection to him through shared blood and history. Powerful draw for a young woman mourning her dad. He was right. Melissa had always been Daddy's girl, sharing Thomas's analytical mind and love of puzzles. His death had left her adrift, vulnerable to anyone offering connection to him. What do I do now? I asked, half to myself. That depends on what you want, replied James. You could sell everything, property, mineral rights, the whole package, and walk away wealthy, but perhaps forever estranged from your daughter. You could fight the brothers legally using this leverage, which might win the battle but worsen family wounds. Or what? You could do what your husband always did. Think 3 steps ahead and find the path no one expects. I considered this as I continued examining the war room. On the desk sat a framed photograph I'd never seen before. Thomas, as a teenager, standing proudly beside a magnificent chestnut horse, his face alight with an innocent joy I'd rarely glimpsed in the man I married. That's Thunder, said James, noticing my focus on the photo. Your husband's horse when he was a boy. The only bright spot in his childhood here? From what he told me, his brothers sold the animal when Thomas was away at college, just to hurt him. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Thomas's support of my love for art, despite having no personal interest in it. The art studios weren't just a gift. They were his reclamation of something precious his brothers had stolen from him. I picked up the photograph, a plan beginning to form in my mind. James, does the laptop with Thomas's videos work down here? He nodded. There's a secure Wi-Fi network throughout the property. Your husband made sure of it. Good. I need to watch the next few videos ahead of schedule. Then I need you to arrange a meeting for me. With whom? First, my daughter, alone, away from her uncles. Then my attorney. And finally, I glanced at the wall of evidence Thomas had compiled against his brothers. I think I'd like to speak with those mining company representatives who've been making offers on the property. James smiled for the first time since we'd entered the hidden bunker. You're planning something your husband would approve of. I'm planning something worthy of the man who loved me enough to create all this. I corrected, a new determination steadying my voice. And I'm going to need your help. Whatever you need, promised James. Your husband saved my life once, years ago. Gave me this job when no one else would take a chance on an ex-con trying to rebuild his life. I owe him everything, and by extension, I owe you. This was yet another side of Thomas I hadn't known. His quiet generosity extending beyond our immediate family, changing lives I'd never even heard about. As we left the bunker, carefully concealing the entrance again, I felt a strange sense of connection to my late husband. Not the grief that had dominated the past weeks, but a partnership that somehow continued beyond death. He had left me not just a property and material security, but tools and knowledge to forge my own path forward. The Warren brothers believed they were facing a naive widow out of her depth. They had no idea what was coming. During the next 48 hours, I barely slept, fueled instead by determination and the growing clarity of my plan. I watched a week's worth of Thomas's videos in a single night, each one revealing more of his strategy and the depth of his foresight. They'll try to divide and conquer, he warned in one recording, as if speaking directly to my current situation. Gregory will be the friendly face, Richard the legal threat, and they'll target Melissa. She's their easiest path to destabilizing your position. Armed with Thomas's insights and my own growing understanding of what I faced, I put my plan into motion. The first step was to meet with Samuel Blackwood. After careful consideration, we decided to approach Thomas's unknown half-brother first, rather than confront the Warren brothers directly. James arranged an appointment at a discreet cafe in Bozeman, introducing me simply as someone who needed to discuss an important family matter. Samuel turned out to be a man in his mid-50s, with a striking resemblance to Thomas. The same intense eyes, the same strong jawline. He was a cardiologist, specializing precisely in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, the condition that had killed my husband. Mrs. Warren, he greeted me with professional courtesy. James said this was an urgent family matter, but I have to confess I don't recall any connection to your name. The connection isn't with me directly, I explained, feeling the weight of what I was about to reveal. It's with your biological father, William Warren. I saw the instant confusion on his face. There must be some mistake. My father was Robert Blackwood. Carefully, I showed him the copy of the birth certificate and the evidence Thomas had collected, including DNA tests confirming their kinship. Samuel listened in silence as I explained everything: how William Warren had maintained a secret second family, how Thomas had discovered the truth, and how the Warren brothers were now trying to snatch away the property that legitimately belonged to me. This is overwhelming, he said finally, running a hand through his hair with a gesture so similar to Thomas's that it pained my heart. Did my mother know? Did she know all along? According to Thomas's records, she knew William was married. The relationship began that way, but William repeatedly promised he would leave his wife. He never did. Samuel remained silent, processing decades of lies and secrets. "Why are you telling me this now?" he asked finally. "What do you expect me to do?" "I don't expect anything," I answered honestly. "You had a right to know the truth, but if you want to help, there is something you could do." I explained my plan. I wasn't asking him to fight my battles, just to be present at a key meeting, to represent a truth that the Warren brothers had hidden all their lives. To my surprise, he not only agreed but suggested involving his sister Hannah as well. "If we're going to unearth family secrets," he said with determination, "let's do it completely." The second step of my plan involved an investigative journalist recommended by Thomas's attorney. Without revealing the full story, I provided enough clues about the Warren brothers' questionable business practices to pique his professional interest. I wasn't looking to expose all their secrets immediately, just to establish a credible threat. Finally, the day of our confrontation arrived. The Warren brothers arrived at Aspen Ridge Ranch exactly at the arranged time, 10:00 a.m. sharp. 3 days after my meeting with Samuel, their black SUV crunched up the gravel driveway with the confidence of men who believed victory was merely a formality. I watched from the great room window, dressed not in the casual clothes they'd seen previously, but in a tailored suit I'd purchased specifically for this meeting. Appearances matter when staging a coup, and I intended to present myself not as a grieving widow, but as the formidable opponent Thomas had always known me to be. "They're here," I called to Melissa, who emerged from the kitchen looking equally professional in a dark blue dress, her father's watch, one of his most treasured possessions, prominently displayed on her wrist. "Ready?" she asked, nervousness and determination warring in her expression. Completely, I squeezed her hand. "Remember, let them talk themselves into a corner first." James appeared from the back of the house. The others arrived through the service entrance. "They're set up in the dining room as you requested." I nodded in appreciation. Perfect timing. The doorbell rang, and James went to answer it with the practiced deference of a caretaker who knew his role in this carefully choreographed performance. "Good morning, gentlemen," I heard him greet them. "Mrs. Warren and Miss Melissa are expecting you. This way, please." They entered with the easy entitlement of men accustomed to controlling rooms. Gregory led, followed by Richard with his ever-present legal portfolio. "Eleanor," Gregory nodded, his smile not reaching his eyes. "We appreciate you agreeing to this meeting. We hope to reach an amicable arrangement about this situation." "Of course," I replied pleasantly. "I've had the dining room prepared for our meeting. Shall we?" I led them through the house, noting their assessing glances at the renovations Thomas had completed. In the formal dining room, a large table had been set with documents at each place, water caraves and coffee service, the picture of professional preparation. "Please sit," I gestured. "I believe we have much to discuss." As they settled into their chairs, expressions of confidence still firmly in place, I remained standing at the head of the table. "Before we begin," I said, "I want to thank you for your previous proposal. It was educational." Gregory's smile widened, clearly interpreting my comment as submission. "We're pleased you've had time to consider our offer. We can discuss the most advantageous arrangement for dividing the property's assets." "Yes," Division, I mused, picking up a remote control from the table. That's precisely what I'd like to discuss. I pressed a button, and a hidden screen descended from the ceiling at the far end of the room. The brothers exchanged surprised glances. Clearly, they hadn't expected this level of preparation. If you'll direct your attention to the presentation, I continued, clicking the remote again. A detailed map of Aspen Ridge Ranch appeared on the screen, showing property boundaries, topographical features, and geological formations. This is the complete survey of Aspen Ridge, I explained. All 2,500 acres, not just the eastern 1,000 acres mentioned in your proposal. Richard shifted uncomfortably. The western section is undevelopable rocky terrain. We excluded it for simplicity's sake. How considerate, I smiled, except for one small detail. Another click and the map overlaid with mineral deposit locations. The complete geological survey from Thomas's war room, showing the massive reserve beneath the worthless western acres. Richard's face flushed. These surveys are unreliable. Our analysis indicates, actually, interrupted a new voice as the connecting door opened. Those surveys have been verified by 3 independent geological teams. The Warren brothers turned in shock as Hannah Blackwood entered the room, followed by her brother Samuel and 2 individuals in business attire. "What is this?" demanded Gregory, half rising from his chair. "This," I said pleasantly, "is a meeting about the true value and future of Aspen Ridge Ranch and about long-buried family secrets." "I have no idea who these people are," snapped Richard, though a flash of recognition momentarily crossed his eyes as he looked at Samuel. "Allow me to make the introductions," I replied calmly. "This is Dr. Samuel Blackwood, cardiologist, specializing in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Beside him, Dr. Hannah Blackwood, geologist. Both are your half-siblings." The silence that fell over the room was absolute. The Warren brothers had frozen, color draining from their faces. "This is absurd," Gregory finally sputtered. "A desperate fabrication." Samuel stepped forward, placing a folder on the table. "We have DNA tests, birth certificates, and financial records showing decades of covert payments from your father to our mother, Sarah Blackwood. The evidence is conclusive." "Our father never mentioned," Richard began weakly. "Of course he didn't," interrupted Hannah. "Just as he never mentioned the truth about Thomas's mother. She didn't die in childbirth, did she? She left your father after years of abuse, and he invented that story to avoid scandal." I saw the shock on the brothers' faces. The family narrative carefully maintained for decades was crumbling before their eyes. "Gentlemen," continued Samuel, his voice professional and calm, "I'm not here to claim anything from this property. I have a successful life I built without knowing my connection to you. But when Miss Warren contacted me and told me about Thomas's illness, the same genetic condition I treat professionally, and about how you're trying to take what he legitimately left her, I felt a moral obligation to intervene." "The same goes for me," added Hannah. "As a geologist, I find it particularly interesting that you attempted to exclude the western section of the property from your proposals, precisely where the most valuable mineral concentrations are located." The Warren brothers were left speechless, confronted not only with the existence of siblings they never knew, but professional experts in precisely the fields cardiology and geology most relevant to our situation. "There's one more proposal on the table," I said, nodding to the 2 people in business attire who had entered with Samuel and Hannah. "These are representatives from Mountain Mineral Resources. They have an offer for limited extraction rights that respects the property's integrity, provides substantial royalties, and includes environmental restoration commitments." The representatives presented their proposal, detailing an approach that was not only financially advantageous, but environmentally responsible. As they spoke, I watched the Warren brothers visibly crumble, their initial arrogance replaced by the realization they had been completely outmaneuvered. When the meeting concluded 2 hours later, we had established a framework to move forward. The Warren brothers would withdraw all claims on the property, sign a confidentiality agreement about the revealed family secrets, and in exchange, we would establish a small family foundation for research, in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It wasn't vengeance I sought, but justice and peace. Samuel had suggested the foundation, a conciliatory gesture that honored Thomas's memory while creating something positive from this painful family history. As I watched the Warren brothers retreat down the driveway, defeated but perhaps all somewhat relieved that their darkest secrets remained protected, I felt a strange mixture of emotions, satisfaction, yes, but also a sense of closure and new beginnings. "You did it, Mom," said Melissa, embracing me as we watched the dust settle on the road. "Dad would be so proud." "We did it," I corrected, holding her tight. "And I think somehow he always knew we could." The weeks that followed passed in a whirlwind of practical matters, finalizing agreements with Mountain Mineral Resources, establishing the Thomas Warren Foundation for Cardiac Research, and carefully exploring every corner of Aspen Ridge Ranch. One afternoon, as I was reviewing Thomas's daily video, I was surprised to hear him speak directly about what we had just accomplished. "If you're watching this, Ellie, it means you've outmaneuvered my brothers exactly as I knew you would. You were always stronger than you believed, more clever than you gave yourself credit for. For years, I watched you put others first, me, Melissa, your students. Now it's time for you to claim your own life." Tears rolled down my cheeks as he continued. "Aspen Ridge isn't just a parting gift. It's a new beginning. The stables, the pine forests, the art studios, they're tools for you to build the life you always deserved." That evening, standing in the studio, I looked at my reflection in the mirrors. The woman looking back at me wasn't the same one who had arrived at this place weeks ago. That woman had been lost, defined by her loss. This woman had purpose, direction, and a new understanding of her own strength. Slowly, I picked up a paintbrush and approached the unfinished landscape on the easel. The painting I had started as a young woman in love with these mountains and with Thomas. My muscles protested at first, but then remembered. The rhythm came first, then the passion, finally the pure joy of creation. I painted for Thomas, for myself, for the life we had shared and the new life just beginning. The next day, I gathered James and Melissa on the terrace to share my decision. "I'm going to stay," I announced. "Not just for now, but permanently. I'm going to turn Aspen Ridge into a cultural and artistic center with art classes, residencies for artists, and programs for local children." "Mom, that's wonderful," exclaimed Melissa. "But your life is in Vermont, your friends, your work." "My life is where I choose to create it," I replied with new confidence. "I've taught art for 30 years. Now I want to paint again. Maybe even teach painting in a different way. I want to wake up every morning seeing these mountains, knowing I'm living the dream Thomas and I shared so long ago." James nodded with approval. Mr. Thomas would be pleased. He always said this place had a soul. It just needed the right person to give it life. In the months that followed, Aspen Ridge Ranch transformed once more. The old barns became galleries, the art studios filled with students of all ages, and the painting studio saw the birth of my first works in decades. Melissa visited frequently, sometimes bringing friends from the city, creating new memories in the spaces her father had created with so much love. The Warren brothers kept their distance, though Samuel and Hannah became regular visitors and eventually, to my surprise, true friends. The Thomas Warren Foundation grew, funding innovative research in cardiomyopathy treatments. 1 year after my arrival, on the anniversary of Thomas's death, I watched the last of his videos. His face, now so familiar through hundreds of daily messages, smiled at me with that unique mixture of tenderness and strength I had always loved. "Today is the last video, my Ellie," he said softly. "1 year of guidance is enough. From here on, the path is yours to discover and create." He paused, his eyes full of contained emotion. "I've loved you every day of our life together, and that love will live on in every wall, every tree, every corner of this place. But now it's your story to write, your life to live fully. I won't say goodbye, because part of me will always be here with you. I'll just say, paint, Ellie, create, teach, love, live. It's all I ever wanted for you." The screen went black, but I didn't feel the devastation I had feared. Instead, I experienced a strange sense of peace and continuity. Thomas was gone, but the legacy we had built together, and the one I would continue building, would endure. That afternoon, I painted in the studio until the sun set, my movements more fluid and confident than ever. Then I dined on the terrace under the stars with James, Melissa, and some of my new students, the sound of laughter filling the night air. Aspen Ridge Ranch, the forbidden ranch that had become my sanctuary, was no longer just Thomas's final gift. It was my home, my future, my rebirth. At 62, I had discovered a truth that many never find. It's never too late to reclaim abandoned dreams, to rediscover lost parts of oneself, to begin again. As the stars shined over the Montana mountains, I raised my glass in a silent toast to Thomas, to the journey we had shared, and to the new paths now stretching before me. The Forbidden Ranch had become hallowed ground, not a place of secrets and pain, as Thomas had once known it, but a sanctuary of possibilities, his last and greatest gift to me, and now my gift to the future.